This is Lindsay Coulter, a wedding and portrait photographer based out of Waterloo, Ontario, up in Canada. And you are listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast.
Hello, Lucy. Welcome to the Workflows Photography Podcast.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so excited to get to chat with you after having such a great conversation for my show, which will be coming up soon.
That's right.
So thanks.
Yeah. So the episode with me on your show is going to be out probably way sooner than this one, but it'll be exciting, and I'll be able to link to that episode in the show notes for this one, so we can drive everybody to listen to both, which is great. So I'm very excited about this. Season 4 is a really fun one for us here at Imagine, because we're getting really down to the nitty-gritty on each guest's personal workflows and what's working well, what's not working well. So I'd love to kick things off and hear from you about one of the two areas that we're going to talk about. Let's start with the first of what is working well for you. And if you need a reminder of what we talked about prior to recording, I can remind you. If you remember, I'm happy to just hear what you have to say.
I remember the first one.
Okay.
So I just launch into that. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my superpower is selling wall portraits in person. Most of my clients invest in 3 to 7 or more, and invest maybe $3,500 to, I have had $30,000, but generally in that, mid to high 4 figures. And really the core of it, and the core of how I've helped my coaching clients achieve this, is by a systematic step-by-step approach to taking a warm lead, someone with good potential, and then step-by-step taking them through this whole system to the end, where there's the opportunity for them to write me great big checks and give me hugs and cry and so forth. In fact, 2 of my clients this week notified me that they just had their biggest sales yet, and they're both fairly new coaching clients. One was $8,000 and one was $6,000. The $8,000 one started with 0. She had not even started her business a year and a half ago. So I'm so proud, and it really is the system. And the people who don't already have something locked in place, but can just do it this way are the ones I find that have the biggest change immediately, or not immediately, but soon. So,
and all these conversations, they're all happening literally in person, not through a Zoom or something virtual.
Yes. Now, in a pinch, maybe Zoom could be a part of it if it absolutely was impossible. But I've found that it's really hard to close the sale. In fact, one of my best clients who's ordered well in the past, we did it on Zoom because I thought, oh, she knows the drill. And it's been a year and I have yet to have her finish her order. So it starts with a phone call. And when anybody contacts me in any way, the first thing I do is get their phone number if they haven't given it to me, and also invite them to call me. The core is I'm building a relationship I call the trusted advisor. And what that means is I get them to feel comfortable, to like me, to have them know that I'm interested, I'm listening to them, I'm a nice person, I'm knowledgeable. And then I get them super excited on that phone call about the potential. And then when they're at that point where they're like, oh man, I hope I can afford her, then I give a very short, and this is a Charles Lewis, been using this 30 plus years, sentence. Most people invest a minimum of X to X, only don't say X. And that might include something nice for your home and a few smaller ones for family or friends. Does that fit within your budget? And I keep it in the, like, this might shock people, but the 500 to 700 range, because the very budget people, that's too high for them, especially once they realize they're not getting 150 digital files. They're, I'm about the printed photography. The people who are hot prospects, it's not so high that they go, oh, I'm not really prepared to spend that. So we'll get back to you. So it's like, yeah, sure, 500 to 700, I can do that. So then we get a consultation, and 90% of the time I do that in person, whether I go to their home or they come here to my conference room, office, home. And at that consultation, I show them the work. I continue to build that advisor relationship. I have them bring photographs of the interior of their home so I can see the colors and style. This is for portraits. Weddings, a little different questions, but same kind of build that connection. Then we book the session. And then at the session, I'm also planting the seeds for the wall portrait purchase, making sure they know that they're going to come in, that the spouse knows they're going to come in for the sale. And then when I get to the sale, I have a workflow with that of how I show the work. I have some secret sauce that I think I invented. So do you want to hear about that? Any questions so far?
If you want to share secret sauce, by all means, you don't have to. It's totally up to you if you want to.
It's not a secret. It's just, I've been... Okay, so first I do a slideshow, put to music. I show them about 80 images. In the slideshow, it might be 40. But I want them to have a lot to choose from so that the best ones stay in the gallery. If I narrow down to the best 40, they're going to take out half. So anyway, so we have a pretty slideshow, and then we do a round of yes, no, maybe. Then we do a round of narrowing down to the best in each particular pose. Then, this is my part one of my secret sauce. We separate them into potential categories. Could this be wall or small or album? What's the highest potential? Then I do a slideshow of the wall portraits twice. And this is worth memorizing. I want you to notice which ones give you, like, you can make up warm your heart or give you a great feeling. I'm going to run through it twice. You'll notice you get that same feeling again. And if you purchase this as art for your home, you will have this feeling every day for the rest of your life. So I'm future pacing them.
Yeah.
The other thing is when they've brought in this goes back a few workflow steps, but when they come in, I've asked them to look around and imagine some spaces, always plural, that might be nice to display photographic art. Yeah. So those spaces start to look lonely and empty to them while they're waiting for this process. Then we go through those, we narrow, and I move the ones down that didn't give them that strong feeling. And then we start figuring out what to do with them, where to put them, what groupings can go somewhere, what should be the main one, canvas, not canvas, gallery wraps, all of that.
Yeah, you're planting a lot of seeds throughout this process of sort of like subliminally getting in their head that, they're going to be buying something. This is where I am not a salesperson, and I've always struggled with selling. Even back in my camera retail store days, I wouldn't try to sell. And I think, and this is kind of where you're going with this in a way, like you're not selling, you're planting seeds, you're pulling on their heartstrings, you're getting them to really think about what they're going to want. And like when I was in a camera store working retail, I would have them get their hands on it and try it and let them ask me questions about it rather than me being, this is the one you want this one. Like, you know, it's, you want them to make the decision, but you're nudging them in the direction that you want them to go. So it's like a fine line.
Exactly.
Of that.
And it comes from, first of all, listening.
Yeah.
And really trying to determine what might serve them. Now, I so believe in the value of finished art in people's homes that I believe everyone should have them. That's my assumption. Because I know how much it has meant to families that have come back, to wedding couples that say they see their wedding pictures on the wall and realize, oh, we're still in love, even though it's been a long time. So it starts with that, but I put on my designer hat, my decorator hat, and that's not sales. That's really, it's service. Good sales, the core of that is service. And Scott, most of my coaching clients don't consider themselves good salespeople. But when you've got this system where you just, okay, have this kind of conversation with these steps, boom, 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 then have this consultation and show them and do this thing, then do the shoot and kind of prepare them and then have a system, they sell themselves. You don't have to find this golden salesman personality.
Yeah. But before we move on to the next thing that's working well, I have one question for you. And that is, what would you say to the photographers like me? So I do surprise proposal photography. I just did 2 this weekend on a following Thanksgiving and Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. I had 2 proposal sessions back to back. Now, I also have a full-time job here at Imagine.
Right.
So I don't have plus I have 2 small kids. You know, I've got things going on. I don't have the mental and physical bandwidth to do the IPS, right? So what would you say to the people like me that maybe there is a way for us to do it, but we also we're scared of the sales. We don't think we have the time for it. What would you say to the people like us, the people like me that are doing here's the gallery, you can buy prints, you can buy wall art, etc.?
So first of all, when you can begin to really understand that perhaps you're not being fair to them by not giving your expertise, by not taking the time to help them have what, in my heart, I believe is really, really important about this. When you get that in your soul, like, I want to be of service. And these people have these digital files and they're not printing them. And if they are, they're not printing them right. And I want to figure out how to do that. So option A is to find somebody that is sales-minded, friendly, nice, have somebody like me train them, and then let them do the sales, work on commission. Everybody makes more money, and the clients get these amazing images in their home and books and all the things. The second thing is, when you're doing the sales, you get to do half as many shoots. And you get to make friends with them. You get more connection. You get people 25 years later coming back and saying, you know, the portraits that we invested in umpteen years ago are the best investment we made in our family's entire life. So it's that, and also there's such a deep satisfaction that people are missing out on in delivering the work, getting the hugs, seeing your work big. You know, I love seeing my work printed beautifully. And it also helps us improve our photography, because when we see what people will purchase, what their reactions are, in person, when they see them large from a projector, then we shoot the ones we know they are going to like. We don't waste our time with, like, when I did weddings and it was, everybody had a book and it was film and such, people would tell me they loved candids. And I'm really good at candids. So I would do a bunch. Mm-hmm. Would those candids end up in the wedding album when they had to purchase them one at a time? Very few.
Right.
So I learned. I still did them because they're fun. But I learned, like, I had somebody on my show that's a pet photographer. And she said when she started selling her work, she realized nobody really liked the picture of a dog jumping up about to catch food with their mouth hanging open. They don't buy that one. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, like, they always have to do that when they're doing pets because they don't realize that that doesn't touch anyone's heart. It might be fun in a book.
It's funny you say that.
Sense?
So the just like regarding the dog thing, completely off topic from what we're talking about IPS, but so the proposal that I had yesterday, there was the guy who proposed to his girlfriend, now fiance. He also surprised her afterwards, having her brother, I believe, bring her dog because he knew that she would want her dog to be in some of the photos. So not in the proposal itself, but afterwards during the mini engagement session, the dog was there, and the dog wasn't cooperating. She was a little overstimulated by everything, and the property where they had it, there was also 2 dogs on the property, so she was sniffing everything. It was chaotic. However, they got treats for the dog, and eventually we got some really cute photos with the dog, and the dog started howling. So I've got probably 30 photos of the dog with them, everybody smiling, including the dog because dogs smile. And the dog is howling, and then there's some photos where the dog's looking right at me, and there's some where the dog's barking. So I didn't mark my barking ones as keepers, but I totally did the howling ones because they're adorable. Whether they buy the howling ones versus the non, that'll be interesting to see. But I knew I had to include both because they're super cute, and maybe they want one versus the other. But anyway, I thought that was very interesting comment because I literally was thinking about that yesterday.
And if you were sitting with them and you were all looking at the images 6 feet wide, you would hear their reaction to it. Yeah. And it may be like sometimes people think that there's an image that they don't care for. And if it was online, I'm not there to say, oh, I can fix that stray hair, or, this one's beautiful because you're all looking together off camera, like you're looking towards your future. Like I can explain to them what makes something wonderful. I literally have a squirrel out, where there's a squirrel. I have a squirrel right now. So that's part of being a guide is they often will buy things that if they were left to their own decisions, people gravitate towards looking at the camera in general, if those are available. But something that they may think, oh, I look fat in that, when I can explain, look at the emotion here. And even because I put myself as an art designer, I can explain the design elements, look how this starts in the left corner and your eye travels here and then it goes around and the colors are harmonious. And that's something people don't know. That's my expertise. Right. And that kind of expertise adds a 0 to the perception of value, at least 1 0.
Yeah. Let's dig into the second area, which you said was working well, which was just your general client workflow. Now, are you talking about the interactions beforehand? Or are you talking about the CRM aspects, like the automations, the nurturing? What when you shared that with me, what exactly were you referring to when it came to the general client workflow?
Okay, so I was married for a while to a guy who worked at Solar Turbines in the split ring cell. And he was a, what's it called? Production control specialist, which is basically a solar turbine has parts, but those parts have parts. So his job was to make sure and order and follow through and get all the parts together in a timely manner so that the split ring cell could be built. And when he explained that, I was like, I'm a production control specialist. So I'm talking about how to get from basically the shoot to delivery. Now, my methods when there was negatives, because I'm very visual, I will forget things if you put it in a drawer. I probably now could get habituated to a CRM, but back when I had a professional organizer help me figure things out, we did a system of shelves. And so the top shelf was when I'd done a shoot or a wedding, and the negatives go in there, and all the info and the proofs. The next shelf was after the sale when I started production. And then the third shelf was when prints started coming in and books and things like that. So I could always look up and think, who is on the agenda and where are they? At that time, I was pretty good at tracking the what. But also, I left out some of the niceties, like habitual, well-timed thank you notes and gifts and some other little details. So I wrote a list, a checklist. And that checklist could either be on paper for each client, or it could be on a whiteboard, and you do the tasks, let's say on the top, and the client's name on the bottom, and you can check as you go along. Or it can be in a CRM. There's probably other ways, but I find when I'm working with clients...
I would like to share how, for those who would like to find a similar method for everything you just said, but on the digital realm too, there's a way that you could do that. The first I'm thinking with the shelves, right? So the shelves, you could digitize that, so to speak, in multiple ways. One way is actually take your computer wallpaper and in Photoshop, make shelves, right? So now your desktop looks like shelves behind you, shelves behind me right now, right? And you've got your folders of where your, what clients, each client folder, right? On your desktop, on the shelf in the different order. So you could literally do a sort of half physical, half digital
I love that
method there. The other is if you're the type of photographer that has like a working hard drive for each client you have, you could still do the physical shelves, but instead of it being film, it could be the SD cards, it could be the hard drives. And then when you're working on it, you plug it into the computer. When you're done, you move it to the next part of your shelf, and so on, so on. So you could digitize the same thing that you're doing, which I really like that, by the way. It's very, very organized. The other thing was what you mentioned with like a whiteboard. I do that with Apple Reminders. And I talked about this in a previous episode. I want to say it was episode 42, but don't quote me on that. It's the episode that I did with Tim Musa and Lindsay Coulter from the Shoot Your Shot Photography podcast. And Tim and I both use Apple Reminders in Kanban form. So similar to Trello.
Kanban?
Yeah. So Kanban is basically exactly what you're saying. You've got columns of here's the tasks, and then you drop your client into where it is, and then you can reorder things and whatnot. And Apple Reminders in the most recent last two iOS versions, Apple Reminders, you can add categories, and once you add categories, you can change the view of the reminder from a regular like list view to a Kanban view that's side to side, and you can drag and drop. So you can definitely digitize what you have done historically for your film work, and I love being able to connect the two different methods, the analog method to the digital method.
Right.
So,
what I love about a CRM, an actual CRM, is like I did a big marketing project. It didn't actually turn out the way I hoped it would, but it had a lot of moving parts and a lot of people I needed to connect with and things to send out. So I got a CRM, and what was nice about it is once I checked off where somebody was in the workflow, then I had that master list that said, okay, this person needs a phone call. This person needs to be sent this. And so I like that summary that I couldn't get, when I look on the shelf, I couldn't think, okay, now where are the rest of those 8x10s or things like that. And I'm sure at this point, what I would probably do is I would still have the bins. I used plastic magazine file folders because they can fit up to an 8x10 and lots of other goodies. But I would have each client have their own memory card that would come right out of my camera. I'd download it, and then I'd put that thing right into their bin so that I had the original. Because I used to spend $200 on film and processing per job. So a $20, couple of $20 memory cards from 2 cameras, pocket change relative to that. And then I would file them away. Probably when I finish the work, then I'd pop those onto those cards, and then I'd put all of that in a physical place to find it later. I used to pull CDs, but I don't see any place to get into a CD anymore. And no one, but it did save my bacon one time where I couldn't find the digital files on any of my hard drives, and I'd used, what was it called? One where you have a lot of slots, and it went bad, and you couldn't get the info off it. But I had those CDs and the file from like 3 or 4 years ago. So,
there we go. I can't remember the last time I had a CD, DVD, or Blu-ray device in my house. Years at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's still like not an old technology. It's like it's still very, very, very new, but very interesting.
Well, I had to find my ring light uses a USB port, and there's not that many on my current computer to use. On my laptop, there are no traditional USB ports. So
you got to get a dongle to convert.
Okay, where are my adapters? So things change.
So let's talk about one area that you're struggling with in your workflow. And I'd love to hear if you have a plan to address it as well. You mentioned that you're struggling with delegating tasks. And I can totally understand that. I think no matter the size of business, it's got to be a struggle for everybody to give up something, right? In the same way that many photographers originally didn't want to give up with their own editing and their culling. And now look, there's so many photographers that are outsourcing it originally to humans, now many to Imagen. So can you talk more about your task struggles and what your plan is to address it?
So currently, as a podcaster and a coach, we'll just say I have a workflow with the podcast. And finding a virtual assistant and training them to do the things. Oh, I have an editor. I do outsource the editing and the posting. But the social media aspect to get it out there has been a challenge. Because I'm not where I can give them, 30 hours a week work. So eventually, because I'm using them maybe 4 hours or 5 hours a week, they move on to something else or something full time. I've discovered now with AI, there are things that they were doing that I can easily do. It takes me less time to create a banner for the YouTube and create the Instagram cover than sending them all the information and then downloading what they send me back. So that has shifted. So if I was trying to grow my photography business again, I would outsource marketing. I don't, like, you've kind of stumped me because I don't have a plan. It's the challenge always. When I did weddings and portraits, I always had somebody that could come in a day or two a week for 4 to 5 hours and help me with the physical aspects, like opening boxes and cutting those negatives and putting them in the bags and writing the things, all the things. But with digital, like, I've tried to come up with and train editors. And I have such a refined sense of what I want that I just never, it was just easier to do it. But that was pre all the magic that you get with, imaging. And so AI, I think, is a game changer in a lot of things. Like with my podcast show notes, I'll send my notes to AI Chat GPT, and then I'll totally customize it and I'll ask for 5 versions. So it is me and it is my voice, but it simplifies things. So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. Well, so question, if you were to be relaunching your photography business, and you said you would outsource marketing. So I wonder, and this is where it could be very helpful for a lot of listeners, is would you be outsourcing to a big marketing agency or like a local marketing agency or just a virtual assistant who can do marketing?
I would start with virtual assistant that can do marketing and that understands and also is willing to let me share ideas that they maybe never even heard of, like doing Facebook ads, like wanted 5 super cute toddlers because I want to upgrade my studio samples and you're going to get a free session, that kind of thing, or so even now, like I have an online course that is step by step about my sales process. It's a 12-week recording from a group class, and it's all put together and beautiful. So I would get a virtual assistant and work with AI and figure out a plan to do all the things it takes to get people to sign up for this really valuable course. You don't just put it out there. So, virtual assistant would be one place I would go, but we still have to supervise it. We still,
of course,
all the things can be so overwhelming, but the more we can put somebody, maybe even I would have somebody not virtual. I would have somebody come here and we would work together and brainstorm and be like my partner in crime. Because I'm better when I'm around people. I get more accomplished. So, I still don't know if I've answered your questions, but because it is a challenging area. And like when I'm doing a portrait session and I'm editing for the final print, I'm even hard on myself trying to do it right. So I let my photo lab do a color correction, a final correction, and send me a test print before I go to print. Because I haven't figured out going from this screen to an actual, print, how to get the tones that I really want. So, but I did have a guest once that basically said, you got to give up perfection for success, for achievement. The clients don't care as much as you do.
It's true.
Let somebody help you and lower your standards a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So I do think there is that line of lowering your standards to make things more efficient for you and more profitable for you, versus lowering your standards to a point where you're still doing so much work that the money you're paying doesn't make it worth it. There's different levels to where you outsource. You could outsource to a company that whatever it might be, right? In whatever task, you could outsource to a company that is super cheap and is not going to do a great job versus outsourcing to a company that's more expensive and is going to do a fantastic job and save you time, which in turn saves you a ton of money. So there's such a variety. So you gotta tread what works best for you.
Right. And what I find when people hire a marketer is often it's all about they're thinking social media. For me, the high-end photographic client isn't searching on social media. They're getting referrals. They're finding people in other ways. And something that was explained to me is if someone comes to me from social media, they've maybe looked at 8 or 10 other photographers. And so they have an expectation that they think they've done their due diligence. But most of those are very inexpensive, give you all the files. If as me, I'm giving a luxury full service opportunity, it kind of taints the waters. I don't know if that's the right term, where they come thinking it should cost this much because out of those other 8, 5 of them are under $500. I'd rather find them at charity events or something that's been really successful for some of my clients is shows like home shows or pet shows where they do a drawing and they're pre-qualified. Like the gal that just had that $8,000 sale, she did a booth at a street fair in the perfect neighborhood for the ideal clients. And she did a drawing, and it's a place they have a lot of pets in the neighborhood. And she got like 8 great clients and $20,000 in sales in her first couple of months. So how does that connect to what you were saying? Anyway, yes. So the marketing, so honestly, hiring somebody who is a coach or a business partner is a part of delegating in a way.
Yeah.
Because they're giving you ideas that then maybe a virtual assistant and you can do the things. But I think a lot of marketers
you don't want the narrow-mindedness. You want it. You want open mind. You want the collaboration, the flexibility, the idea, motivation, not just pigeonholed to one thing and that's it.
Right. One thing that may or may not be right for our industry and for the niche. So, I don't know how you'd find a marketer that knew exactly what to do for you. But I'm sure they're out there.
I'm sure they're out there. Luci, this has been such a great conversation. I love, as somebody who, just rewind a bit, as somebody who dreads the idea of doing sales, I love that you dug so deeply into that. And I'm glad we got to talk about these other things as well. I know there was so much here for all the listeners to take away from, and I can't wait to share this episode with the entire industry. So thank you for taking the time and chatting with me and sharing all your expertise.
Yeah. So I have an opportunity, if it's okay, to offer.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I can offer 8 of your listeners a complimentary Create the Business of Your Dreams session. No obligation, no pressure. We take a deep dive into your dreams, some of the challenges, and then where you might go next is something that I give you some thoughts about. So you can go to lucidumascoaching.com, or you can email me at luci@lucidumas.com and see if there are some available. I'd love to support your listeners that might be interested in that. So thanks for letting me share that.
Amazing. Yeah, I will be sure to include that in the show notes as well. So that way, first 8 people to take Luci up on that. That's a really good offer. So go ahead and do that. Thank you, Luci, for sharing that. And I will, again, link to Luci's podcast as well. I definitely recommend, if you're listening to this podcast, you should listen to Luci's, which will be in the show notes as well for you to just click and subscribe. So thank you, Luci.
Thank you, Scott.
You have been listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast. To hear more from Workflows, to learn more about our guest, and for an exclusive offer for Workflows listeners, please go to workflowspodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.